Hello, good afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you're coming from. I'm Ashley. Welcome to Archetype, sponsored by Lenovo and AMD. Um, I think we're already getting kind of into it. So this is week 4 of this character, which is the student. So we went with a martial arts type, vibe with our monkey. And today I figured I would do two things. So at the end of every character, we'll always do a pose. But I don't think the pose will be anything too crazy. I want to kind of maybe do something along these lines here. I think that could be kind of fun. We can bend the her weapon that she has. But I also want to make sure that my concept, I did this little sack that she kind of carries. That's reference to this, which I think is very cool looking. So I'm gonna go ahead and model that one first, and once we get that all modeled out, then we can start posing her. And I think we'll have time for both of those things today. So that's kind of the plan for today. If you're in the chat, say hello. Osasero, I see you already. I'm very excited to actually sculpt today on this because I got this is not a sponsorship, by the way, but I got a new screen tablet. So, I know you guys can see my video, and now I'll be looking down at my tablet instead of up at my normal screens. So now I have 4 monitors, and I'm pretty excited about that. Visual effects artists can never get enough monitors. That's just how that works. But yeah, so now I have a Huion tablet that I've been playing around with and trying out. I just got it this weekend, so I'm pretty excited. So far, so good. I have no complaints about it. So if you're in the market for a screen tablet, then so far I would say it's a pretty good recommend. I have the 16-inch one, and it's a good size. If you're going to get the 16-inch one or one that's smaller, then I would probably recommend getting the 2.5K or the 4K. I have the 2.5K. 1080p on a smaller monitor just is really hard to see all the buttons that you're kind of dealing with. So that's my piece of advice. But so far, so good. So we're going to go ahead and get into modeling this little circular little bag that they have. I like starting with a sphere such as this, and it's not a completely perfect sphere. It's actually got kind of like a flat top. So I'll model it like as if I'm going to model also the top with it, because it's one cohesive piece. I think we have something kind of like that, and then it's a little kind of more ovalish, maybe. Oh, thank you. There's a post for the tablet. Again, not sponsored by Helion. It's just something that I've been playing around with now that I got it, and I really like it. I've been using the Wacom. Oh, what is it called? It's like the really tiny one. So it's not the bamboo though. I think it's a different one. And that one worked really well. I have no complaints about that one. I think the biggest thing for me is that I have tendonitis, and so drawing really small, I think, was actually pretty detrimental to my hand, and it was hurting my hand a lot. So I'm forcing myself with the tablet to draw a little bit bigger than I normally would, and it's also forcing me to slow down a bit more than I probably normally would as well. So yeah, that's kind of my reasoning for changing. So I'm just starting with a sphere, and I'm just doing basic, basically just box modeling. Seems like there's a part of it that's kind of flat at the end, so I'm gonna I'm going to bring this up to that. I haven't done much research into it, but I'd actually love to figure out what it is that they carry in this little sack. It's a very cool looking piece of accessory. So I really like it, but I'm not exactly sure what it's for. So we'll go ahead and bevel that, and I'll also probably bevel. Let me go ahead and take this, and then I can split this away now. So now I have two pieces that sit directly on top of each other. So that way I can merge them back later, which is what I'll do. But to create the little opening for the case, I'll split them off. Go ahead and bevel this as well. It's hard to tell exactly what's on the top. It doesn't seem like there's anything on the top of these, but we could come up with a design, or I could do probably extrude this in or inset this. So I can inset this by quite a bit, and maybe I can pull this up. And then I can extrude this little bit out just to get some extra little detail. There's also going to be little handles and stuff on the side that will hold the strap that goes around, so we'll also add that too. So I can go ahead and extrude all of this in. And by default, ZBrush likes to extrude out, but I like extruding in. So you're always going to get flip normals if you do that. So when that happens, you can just always go back and you can just flip them. And we have that. So now I can take this. I don't know how many of you guys have, I don't know how, I can't remember if I really utilized the ZModeler tool yet in stream. I think I did a little bit for the cyberpunk, or not the cyberpunk, the steampunk chipmunk. But I think a lot of that I also did not during the stream. But for the most part, when it comes to box modeling or creating this stuff in ZBrush, it's all the same standard tools that you would use in any other program, really. Which I kind of like, but it's a little bit more, I mean, there's simpler tools, but I kind of like that because you don't need anything super complex when it comes to poly modeling. And I like to use personally the creasing method. So I'll polygroup based on where I want to crease things. Which then in turn, I don't have to create, constraining edge loops or things like that. I can just go to smooth it and see what it looks like, and I'll get the result that I want. Cool. We'll use extrude this now. And again, it's always going to extrude inward, but I can just flip it. There we go. I'm going to create another lip as well on this. And do the same thing here. And then to get it rounded, I'm just sliding the edges together because in this it kind of acts almost as like an average. So if I slide this down, it'll eventually go up to meet the other edge. So in order to getting a really sharp curve, you get kind of a transitional curve. As you can see, the more I slide this, the more averaged it kind of gets. There's other ways you can do this. I just kind of like having that kind of control. So I say this says that the ZModeler tool is confusing. It definitely can be when you first are starting out trying to use it. Just because, you know, all the buttons and things that you have to utilize for it can be a bit weird. It is component based too, so holding spacebar on a vertice versus a face versus an edge gives you a bunch of different results. My recommendation is just start with like a cube, and you can kind of go through most of these little tools and just click and play and see what they do. Most of them I don't use. There's only a few that, you know, I really use from like a day-to-day basis of box modeling. So sometimes simpler is just better. I thought these were set. They're very, very close in color. There we go. Slide that down. There. And then now when I can grab this and I can auto group this first. It's doing a lot of the same poly groups. Increase that. And there we go. Now we have a little basket case. Cool. So now that we have this, now I can add the little handles on the side. And again, we're working with something that has like a lot of curvature. So this is something where I like to personally duplicate what I have already, and then I can solo this, and then I'll just pick what I know what I want. So now I can polygroup this, and I can grab, you know, maybe this as a handle, polygroup that, and I can select that, and then I can just delete the rest. But now I'm working within the same curvature that's going to have the same topology that I'm working with. Tauntaun. I'm gonna have to be better about looking up from my screen now because I can't see it back and forth. Do you enjoy sculpting certain things more than others? Does a creature feel different than an object because of the ideas behind it? I enjoy sculpting all of it because I think all of it tells a story, right? So, you know, when we talk about like who this student is, a lot of it is asking who, what, where, and when. But another important question I think gets kind of put to the wayside a lot of times is how, right? So how is directly related to what that character has on their immediate persons all the time. And then as a character artist, I mean, sculpting organic creatures is really fun and great, but when you're creating characters, 90% of the time you're going to be modeling objects. You know, there's not a lot of humans that you can think of besides maybe Mr. Manhattan or something like that. That's just kind of a blue naked man, right? Most characters that you see, like in Batman or something, like he has gadgets and he's got a cape and he's got all these other things that is more than just organic sculpting. So I feel like that's a really common thing that character artists or up-and-coming artists kind of forget is, you know, a character artist, most of the students that I talk to say that they want to be a character artist. Meaning to them, they're like, yeah, I just want to sculpt like organic, cool stuff all the time. And that's great, but most of the job is not that. Most of the job is actually sculpting props. You sculpt a lot of props as a character artist. So it's important to actually really enjoy doing all of those things. Of course, I love, sculpting dinosaurs and creatures and all that good jazz. But at the end of the day, if I don't enjoy drawing what most people consider like a boring object, I'm probably not going to like my job that much, because a lot of my job is sculpting belts and t-shirts and all sorts of things like that. So you got to be able to find what's fun about the current project that you can get into, or what about that shirt that will explain more of who that character is, and being very intentional with your work, I think, is really important when it comes to that stuff. And it keeps it really entertaining. So instead of just modeling a shirt, ask the questions as to, why are you modeling that shirt in that way? Because the shirt being really clean versus a shirt being really dirty will tell you a lot about what that character has been through. So yeah, I think it's really helpful to kind of put your mindset in that kind of place. There's also, looking at my reference here, there's also I think there's like little handles at the bottom that I want to kind of. These also have the belt go through them, so they become like a little hole. So what I'll do is I'll bevel this out. But yeah, just looking at the practicality of something. And it's really fun also too. I actually really like doing prop modeling, because most of the time you learn something about something. In the stream, I'll usually just look at reference and kind of just let myself be guided by what I see. But I think a lot of it has to do with discovering, for example, for this basket that they're carrying or holding, I want to know what's inside it. I want to know why they're carrying it or what it is. Or why is it shaped the way it's shaped? It's very interesting and very unique shape in comparison to, most handbags or something that I usually see. So I think while you're, sculpting props or coming up with character props and ideations, you get to kind of learn a lot about the world itself around us, and I think that's also super, super cool. So the more you know, right? The more you know will always benefit the work that you do. Or are these not the same? That's why. Rona is asking, someone before that, sorry, Ash Blossom is asking, am I modeling a pot? We are modeling some sort of basically handbag for our monkey character here. So she's going to be putting this and wearing this on her back eventually. So that's what we're working on right now. So I'm just modeling the basic parts of it, and then I'm going to create some maybe interesting designs that go around it. So we'll see. And then the next question was, do I need to get better at ZModeler, or do I do most of my character work in ZBrush, UVs in another program? I definitely do UVs in another program, Bruno. I actually will flatten out UVs in ZBrush because I'll usually already have poly groups that are usually pretty good for UVs. But yeah, they're very terrible in ZBrush. So I'm going to pull this out a little bit so we get where that little handle is. And maybe we can sculpt something on top of it as well to give it some extra detail. But yes, 100% I will sculpt in a different, or do UVs in a different program. But most of the other stuff, I 100% do in ZBrush. Most of my work is done in ZBrush. Some people think I'm crazy for doing hard surface in ZBrush, but it's really whatever your personal preference is. So. Tauntaun is asking, do I usually get direction about characters, like their emotions or motivations that feed into the design? Most of the time, It really depends on the director or the people that you're working with. Sometimes that's more of your job. But a lot of times when I'm modeling for characters and stuff, there is a director or somebody who has, an idea about what they want to do or how they want to execute, said character. And then it's my job to bring that visually to life, right? So this, trying to describe an emotion or who a person is or how they are, that says a lot about not really the sculpt, but later on when you're talking about like the body language of a character, are they shy? Are they really extroverted? Are they, all these different types of things that characters can be. It's super important to think about while you're, designing facial expressions or when you're designing certain things. If a character's shy, maybe they hold, some sort of trinket to make them feel better. If they're like a nervous person, maybe they have something on their persons that they tinker with a lot, right? So you can extrapolate emotions and characters into what they have and how you're handling sculpting them and stuff. And that will help. A lot of stuff that you work or see in film or in games is also through a lot of symbolism. So for me, I love doing shape design that kind of is a shape that represents something else. So an example would be, maybe later when we do like the teacher, if he's wise and knowledgeable about a specific thing, maybe there's something in his shape language that we can show that he is knowledgeable of a said subject by being inspired by the shapes of, monk statues or, something that has to do with like our theme that we're going with here. So, you can find those inspirational shapes and trying to tell a visual story in any sort of form that you want to. Oh, thank you, fellow Art, for saying all the hard work that I put into and staying in touch with live streams. I appreciate it. Oh, Rona was talking about, so there's a UV animation thing that people do. It's actually really useful for when you're sculpting stitches and stuff, is you can flatten out your model based on the UVs. So if you have really straight, perfect UVs, you can like draw stitches really quickly and do a bunch of fun stuff like that. So yeah, that's always a really good one. Gonna increase the that's feeling better. So I'm not going to subdivide this yet because I want to merge this all together later to move it and size it. So we can add extra detail like that later. But what I will do is I want to create some detailing on maybe the top. Well, in the reference it's actually on the bottom, so let's do that. So we'll make some reference here on the bottom. There's like a cool little patterning that happens, but maybe we can create a cool pattern that goes across. So I'm going to duplicate this again. And I just want purple. In. So now we can take that, and we don't have to really move it. What I'm actually going to do is I will actually UV this. So I want to create I want to put like a little texture, like a noise texture, but noise surface texture is based off of 3D projection. So unless you have UVs, so it's important to get UVs for that. So I'm going to go to my Z plugin, go to UV master. Unwrap that. Cool, it's all the way down there for some reason, but that's okay. We can just bring it up, I guess. It doesn't really matter, I guess, where it is, but unflatten. Copy that. Bring it back into our normal scene. Paste that. There we go. Super easy. We'll go into our noise. So we have this noise here. We can frame this up, and then we can choose UV, and then go into this noise plugin, which is here. And we can choose something really simple for this, like this wreath pattern. You can say okay, and at first you won't be able to see anything. We can start adjusting these strength multipliers, get rid of this mix noise, so you won't be able to see anything. You can see it's too big, so we'll keep making it smaller. Smaller, smaller, smaller. Turn off relative. There we go. Now you can start to see it. And you can see if you base it on UVs, you'll get pretty perfect. Well, I mean, it's not going to be perfect. You'll see that it warps a little bit, but that's just because ZBrush, you know. You could go in and fix it and make it really perfect later, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. So then I can say okay. And now you can see there's a little cool texture that goes around a model, right? And later we can subdivide this and make it look better. But as a preview, it looks cool, right? So, we can change it to something else if you wanted to. See, oops. You can go in here and, you know, we could do something. If you use stripes or something, and say okay. And then if you change the angle of this, you can kind of make it a little more sideways. And say okay. And now you have something that's more like a striped ribboning. That's actually how I did the. I'm actually going to keep that because that actually looks and kind of goes in line with this rope here that I made that goes around a little belt. It's a really simple little piece of geo. It's nothing special. But this is the same tactic. Is I UV'd it and then did the stripes and moved it sideways, so that way it feels like it's got kind of like that spiraling rope feel, right? And then these little wood pebbles are also surface noise, and it's just the actual wood noise texture. And so the wood one actually works pretty well for just kind of like giving the idea that something's made of wood. So I like utilizing all these little cool techniques in ZBrush. It helps really display your idea as quickly as possible, which I like. The more I can get my character feeling like a character, make sure this is going to be the same orange, the happier I am with that stuff. So we'll fill this object here. Maybe this will be a slightly brighter orange. Turn off that color mix. We can keep the color mix on and make it, you know, you can color mix it into something if we want to. Something more like that. Maybe this is a bit more brighter orange than the shirt that she's wearing. So I'm going to add one more little detail piece. And there we go. Cool. And then I'm gonna add, this is like a kind of like copperish, silverish kind of color. So we'll do that. It's feeling very peachy, personally. I think I'm gonna change this over to be a little bit more orangish. That's feeling a little better. Cool. So we have that, and then again on the bottom of these, it actually looks like this piece could actually potentially be this silver. So What I can do is I can just select this, extrude that, split that away for now. Pick that one. So now that's that color. Then I can close the inside of this. So now it's a separate thing. We can sculpt on top of it later if we want to. Or we can sculpt on top of it now. I just want to merge it all first before I add subdivisions, so that way I can work on it all at once. And then when I need to move it in place for posing and stuff, it'll just be a lot easier if I do it that way. So. There we go. And then I'm just going to make sure that I close this off. So because there's the inside of this, I can just, I can delete all this in here. Right, so I can delete that. I can close that hole. I can also make it interactive by bringing it inwards or outwards, which is kind of cool. I won't do that for now, I'll just keep it flat. I will do it to the, well, I guess I don't have to because it's flat on top. So there we go. Pick that color. And if I wanted to, what I think might be cool is we could take actually all of this and we could put that weave pattern on it later. I think that could be kind of cool. So we can go and unwrap this, flatten it. These aren't going to be perfect. We'll see what we get from it. Can choose that weaving again. Oh, where'd it go? There we go. Yeah, it gets a little warpy because of the way the polygons split up, but you can see how you can easily get like a weaving pattern. Which can look pretty cool, right? So adding a little texture and stuff like that is really helpful. And then you can actually just copy that. You say, okay, and take this and edit, paste it, and you should get the same result. Now it's based off of UV, which is wrong, right? Because we don't have UVs on the bottom, but that's how you can easily transfer the same scale and everything to the other one. So now you can get something that's like very contextual and textural, which I think is really cool. And if you want, we could do something where eventually we could just mask off this area and just have it wrap around that. So, yeah. Oh, Osa was asking, why do I copy the unwrap model and paste it? One, it's habit. So this UV master, when you unwrap and stuff, in the past, when I've done it within the tool itself or within like your existing working file, it'll change the scale of your model for some reason. So when I was working on like sideshow collectible type stuff that where scale was super, super important, right? It was really, really problematic because you don't want to change the scale of your scene. So to avoid doing that, you always can say work on clone to protect your initial scene, and then you can unwrap it, flatten it to double check it, say okay, copy it, and then paste it back into your normal scene. So that's why I'm copying and pasting the UVs. All right, so now we got that. And then we'll add the little sash and belt that goes around it. I think that'll be really helpful and cool. I'm just looking at my reference and thinking, I think it might be cool to, give me this could, okay. I want something a little more interesting down here, so I think what I'll do actually is I'm just going to select this. I'm actually going to delete the rest. And then I'm just going to I want to keep that kind of shape language going. So I have this other handle, you know, that I was on the side. So I want to kind of keep that same motif going, where it's like thick to these kind of like thinner or thicker outer edges that kind of drop in, so you get this kind of square shape. And I'll polygroup that, and then I'll select that, hidden. And then the belt will run through there. So I don't have to put a hole, I'll just fake it. Doesn't need to be that accurate, but I want basically the sash to run through there so you can see it on the bottom, because that's what I see on my reference, and I really like that. I think it adds like a cool detail. So again, I just want to follow what's already existing in the real world, because what's already existing looks cool enough to me. So that's what I'm going to do. Slide that down. And I'm just grouping by normals and creasing based off of that. And then to get the softer thing, I can crease by a certain subdivision level, so that way when it goes above that, it does this automatic beveling and smoothing, which I like. So it keeps everything just very consistent. So there we go. So now I have that. So after being pretty happy with that, I think maybe the only other thing I want to do is add maybe a little handle that goes across here. So again, even though we don't really have the geometry for a handle, I still like to work within what I have, because it just will always line up nicely. So I'm going to duplicate it. I know maybe it seems just crazy, but I'll just select this, delete hidden. I'm going to polygroup and select these and select that. So I got rid of a lot of it, right? But then I can go into bridge and bridge this and do run a near and weld. Oh, did I not duplicate? Oops. I'm gonna duplicate that and then I'll go back. There we go. I didn't duplicate it, so make sure you duplicate it if you're gonna do that. And then I can grab that. And I can bring it up. And turn off the noise on this. Right, so while it may have seemed maybe easier to just grab a cube or a flat plane and then just kind of like box model it out, I just find this method easier. It's going to line up perfectly with everything else that I already have in place, right? And I can kind of see it. I know for me, working with something that I already have will always feel faster than just trying to insert a cube and like move it and then work around it. I find that just working with what you have is a lot faster. At least for me, it is. So then I can stream this in. Quick. And there we go. Now we have like a little handle that sits on top of there. So that's kind of cool. And I can select this and move this up a little more if I want to. So yeah, for prop modeling, you know, it's a little bit of a slower process, but, or not a slower process, but a process that, you know, maybe at first you won't enjoy because it's not, you know, something organic or something like that. But again, I find that it's just really about finding the story in everything that you make that'll keep you interested, which is what Rona was talking about right now, actually. So thank you for that wonderful segue. It's like, what's in the basket, right? Food, fruit that gives her power-ups. I mean, could be devil fruit, we don't know. You know, yeah, what is she carrying? Maybe it's something really precious, or maybe it's something that she has to transport and protect, right? Maybe it's part of a trial that she has to carry this. Maybe it's just like almost like Goku weights, right? Where he's carrying just heavy stuff, making, you know, Master Roshi makes him carry milk cartons. You know, it could be part of her training if you want it to be. It could really be anything you want it to be, right? But the important thing is that you're thinking about it. So, you know, what is in there? And even though we didn't mean to, the fact that we UV'd this and then we broke our UVs and now we can't see that, actually looks kind of cool, doesn't it? I like it. So that worked out for us. And I think what I'm going to do too here is I'm going to slide this out a little bit, just to bevel that a little bit more. There we go. Cool. Sweet. So there's our little basket, right? Pretty cool. And maybe secretly later we'll throw in some fruit, and that'll work. I'm gonna save because ZBrush is really mean to me sometimes, and I don't want to lose my work. I gotta be better at that because last time I lost so much work. All right. So again, now that there's no subdivisions on any of this, now I can merge all this down and I can position it on her where I want it. So now I can merge down, merge down, merge down, merge down, and merge down. Now that texture along the middle is going to disappear, but that's okay. I know that I have my UV set up, so when I'm ready to subdivide and like apply that stuff, we'll be good to go. As long as I know it's there. So I can just turn off the noise for now, if it's too distracting for you. So there we go. And now we have our little model. I'm gonna move the rotation up to maybe where the handles are. And we can move this character in place. They're pretty big, so. Synth is here. Happy Tuesday. Character's coming along. I know. Where have you been? I've been so lonely without you. Actually, everyone's been really cool about asking questions and staying involved in the chat. So, of course, I always appreciate everybody talking and asking questions in the chat. It makes my job more fun because I get to chat about art with all you guys. So, always appreciated of you guys asking questions. And there are no dumb questions, just ask anything. And it also doesn't have to really relate to anything. You can kind of ask me whatever you want. If you're curious about industry or art or favorite movies or latest and greatest video games, whatever you want to ask, I'm here for all of it. So I'm going to put this maybe kind of over there like that. And we can add, I will add a strap, but it is going to change once we pose the character, but it's nice to kind of get an idea of how long that strap's going to be and like where it's going to connect and how it's going to wrap around and stuff. So we can do that right now. So to do all that though, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to turn off just some things that get in the way, which would be, you know, these little balls here. And now that I look at this as a whole, that is a little too orange in my taste. But I can select that color, turn on RGB, lower this intensity, and fill the object slowly until I feel like it's starting to match. That's a little better. It's a little too bright orange. Going too Goku for me. Alright, cool. So I'm just going to use a pre-existing curve, which I think is in here. And it's just this wide strap. I mean, it's not anything fancy, it's just literally a rectangle. So I'm going to take this wide strap brush. And then I can start drawing that out. So I'm going to slowly start drawing this out, and I'm not used to my hand being in the way. That's funny. Can start to move that down. Oops. Oh no, it didn't connect. I'm sad. It should have connected. So we can move to our stroke. Then start bending, start locking. What I can do is I can actually sew this. And I can make the curve brush first. And this does go all the way around, right? But I think I'll just leave the strap as a separate object, and then I'll just add that stuff later. So I'm going to try to position the start of it and the beginning of it, or the end of it first, and then I can play with the stuff in the middle. So it's very long right now, so that's where I can go to my stroke. I can turn on liquid, and I can kind of move this back down. Maybe it's elastic. No, I think it's liquid. Yes, liquid really only works from hair, which is kind of annoying. I kind of want it to work from the middle, but it's fine. This might be too much of a pain in the butt, I'm realizing. There are easier ways to do this, and I'm just taking the hard route. But we're getting there, it's fine. You guys can watch me struggle for a while. That's normal. That's an artist's journey, right? Man, that's not bad. I got that pretty quickly. I was worried I wasn't gonna be able to wrap around. And if you're running into twisting like this, you can click and hold control. You can kind of, I can go crazy. I can keep twisting this, right? So you can get really crazy. But yeah, if you're worried about twisting, you can kind of twist. Although the moment you start moving it again, it doesn't like you and it won't keep that twist. So it's one of those like last minute things that you can do until you're ready to actually just start kind of getting rid of the curve and working with it as like a normal brush. So I can just start curving all that stuff a little bit. So I kind of line up with what I want. That looks pretty good. And then I'll go ahead and split hidden. Or split mask points, not split hidden. There we go. And now we got that. And then one thing that I can do is I should be able to group by normals. And I'm just going to take this plane. I just want the top plane of this because I want to be able to edit this a little bit. So now I'm going to delete hidden. And I'm going to try to half this with the Z remesher. Half it again. There we go. So now I get something that's a little more workable geometry. And if you're getting weirdness like this, you can also go and run a little polish by features. And that should help smooth out some stuff. Running a normal polish will work too, but you see it gets really thin and crazy unless you crease the object itself. Now we're getting something like that. And the strap is too thin at the moment for me, but that's okay. We can totally change that and fix that. That's kind of why I changed it from a plane like this to a thick plane to just a thin plane, because now I can just extrude this whole edge out like that and get a much thicker plane. And if I want to, I can always delete the edge loop within here. But I mean, it's not that much topology, so I don't mind keeping it. You can just slide this out. And we're gonna trick our audience members by thinking this is the same strap, but we'll just make a new one that goes down and below it, right? So it'll just be two separate objects that we'll be working with. And again, in reality, this strap is going to push in all of her clothes and different things like that, but I don't want to mess with that yet until we get the pose, right? So once we get the pose, then we can start doing that stuff. Cook, hello. Velasco's saying thanks for choosing, or oh, what are you saying? Sorry, my tab is tiny. Oh, he just says appreciate the time that I take to be here with you guys. That's what it's all about. Happy to be here with you guys and talk about design and different fun things like that. I mean, this is what I do on my free time anyway, right? So might as well have you guys join in on the fun. we're making good time. This is about where I wanted to be with this process. Because then we're going to spend the next half sculpting. Or not sculpting, posing. We've been sculpting or modeling. Words are hard while you work. Increase this, and then I can rub polish on it. Just gonna smooth that out a bit. Cool. So, yeah, now we have her little case, and then we have her weapon. So I'm gonna do, like I said, I thought it would be cool if she was like somehow hanging off of her weapon, like we have in our, whoops, let's see if we can do that. There we go. Like in our reference here, I think this is a pretty cool stance. And so I kind of want to do something similar. So in order to do that, I think what's easier first is to pose the weapon, and then to pose her around that weapon. So we'll do that. So to bend this, first you want more subdivisions in this because there's not a whole lot on here. What's in the pot? Everyone's wondering what's in the pot. So the background story for this character, if you have, or for anybody who's missed the past few weeks, we are doing the archetype, the student. So the idea is that she is a learner of something, which we came up with was going to be, you know, like cool martial arts stuff. Because I thought doing a monk-y was fun. It was something that I kind of dabbled it with that idea in the past. So yeah, I thought it would be fun to kind of explore it for the stream. So we're doing a monkey. So she studied martial arts, and that's where her influence initially comes from. Right, cool. So I'm going to take this, and we'll make sure that this is centered. Okay, cool. This is centered, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use the bend curve. So the bend curve tool, we can up the resolution a few times. And I can just pull works pretty well for a full-like object, doesn't it? Or something like that. Now I'm going to really quickly, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to save. And then I'm going to redo that, and then we'll just save this one as the pose version, right? So now I can take this one, move this down, move this over, rotate it. So maybe it'll be kind of something like that. Cool. And then, like I said, I'm going to get rid of the pot and then her sash she doesn't have. Another thing that I can get rid of to make posing easier are these little beads here too. Because I can always just place those and move those later after the fact. It's a little annoying to do it again in the pose master. I don't mind keeping the ones on the wrist. I don't think those will move too much, so I can grab that and split that away. And then I'll just hide these ones. And I also already have hidden the ones that go around her neck. So I'll leave those also off for the sake of the posing. Because again, just to accidentally warp the spheres, you don't really want to do that. Her hand I'm not super worried about. But when we're moving and twisting her body and doing stuff, I just don't want to interfere too much with those. And those, again, are easier to place after the fact than during posing. Same thing with probably this. And I think for the final one, I think I'm going to extend this and have it, maybe flow a little more. And have that be kind of fun. We could even use the dynamics on that one. So we're going to keep this really simple. We'll go with that because we'll also always have to be keeping her weapon also masked while we're doing all this. So it's already going to be a little weird. Because I think the last one I did was, we did the line and we just kind of, I posed it first and I just sculpted the rock around it. But this is very different because it's a part of a weapon. So can't really pretend that. Can't really fake that too much. It's a little harder to fake like a nice bend curve and picture where that is versus just doing it. Cool, so now we're gonna get into posing. Go to Transpose Master and go ahead and T-Pose Mesh. And again, all this stuff has, if I did my job right, all has subdivision levels, so it should be easier to work with because it is technically lower res. You can see there's nothing on here that is super, super high res. And now she's all orange. So it just makes your life a little easier. And then again, we're going to go through and group things that we know will be moving together. If I want to change the ear position and stuff later, I can do that after the fact. Oh my god, it looks like a chicken now. Oh man. I love it. You guys see the chicken, right? Great. That is great. Alright. Get rid of that. We're gonna mark that and then take the clothes. Actually, we're going to take the body first and then we'll do an auto group on it. And we're going to make sure that we get we're going to hide the arms and the torso, and then maybe we'll group this together. I have a sneeze coming on. Oh god. Thank you for the chicken emote. I appreciate it. Post for chickens. So we're going to take the fingers. And again, fingers are probably easier just to pose later as well if we want to do something more dynamic. So I'm just going to keep those as a whole. So I'm going to just position the hand and then I can pose it later once we get out of T-pose. So I'll take this and this, this, and this. Actually, what I want to do, I'm going to take jacket. I'm going to turn on symmetry. And I'm going to shrink this away until I reach the sleeves. There we go. And then I can group that. And now I can group sleeves with shoulder. Right, so now those should move in tandem with one another. Whoops. Like that, and now we can have this torso all move together. Well, that's an interesting polygroup. I don't want white. And then we can have this and this, and all these fun little rope doohickeys be one group as well. And then let me just make sure that the You know, that group together. And then the pants, we can do the same thing. So the pants, you should be able to actually, I think it might be easier if I just do this. We're just gonna grab basically the underwear section of that, right? And then we can do an auto group. There we go. And then we can now group the leg together. Like that. And then for moving the legs again, I can just mask off where the knee is and stuff, and that's not too hard. So there we go. So now we have our different groups that we can group together and move around. If I wanted to, I could probably group this with this. So now those all should move together. So that's looking pretty good. Cool. I probably should have just gotten rid of the tail, but I forgot that it was there. So that's okay. We'll just work with it. So now I will take this, and I will always try to keep this masked. And we're just going to try to position her close enough to the final pose that we're trying to do. So her arm's longer than her feet. So I'm going to try to get her feet to position where it would probably be wrapping around, and then I can kind of base the rest of her pose off of that. So now I can take the arm, pull that out. And now I can see kind of, you know, where that's going to be. So now I can go here, pull that out a bit more, right? Because I want her arm to kind of be outstretched, like as if she's really leaning and pushing against it. So I could even, and I'll bring this foot down a bit more and reach this out more. Because I want to put a bend in her knee, but I want her arms to be outstretched. Rona's saying save, all that grouping's making me nervous. Unfortunately, I mean, I can save this, but the unfortunate thing is T-Spose Master's not super friendly for saving, unfortunately. So this is kind of like a do it and just do it once and hope you don't have to do it again. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of smoothing here. Try to find where that great choke canter would be, right? Where the hip would actually be rotating from. This is where if something's sticking out, I can use the topology tool to bring it back in or smooth it. I can lift this up a bit. And anything that's going to become a weird overlap, that's totally fine. Can move this out a bit. Right, and now I'll find where that knee is. And bend her knee a bit more. And I'm just using Alt to snap as well, if anyone's curious. So bend that down, and now I'll mask where the ankle is. Get a basic directionality for that. I like to try to position the gizmo to where like it would actually be rotating and moving from. So that way I feel like I can get proper ankle rotation. And this is going to be perfect because I also didn't sculpt feet separately. So I'm going to get as close as I can to something that feels decent, but nothing, doesn't have to be anything crazy. And then also to get the thumb, the big toe to wrap around, I'm just going to do that also after the initial posing. So I will take the top half now. Here we go. Gonna run some smooths on this, and then what I'll do is I'll go in the back here and find where I want that to rotate. So move this down, and I can kind of pull this, right, so it feels like she's really stretching that arm, like she's really pulling and kind of holding that weapon out. And that's where we can go in and use the Move Topological tool and pull out this part. We can always do this later as well, but sometimes it's nice to kind of fix these things a little bit. So now it feels like she's getting stretched a bit. Right, and then we can grab this and grab the neck here. And like I said, I like to mask some of that. And then run a little smooth on it. Putting it back here. Oops. There we go. I will say that, you know, when you're first trying to do the T-pose master, it's a little weird to think about, you know, what you need to mask, what you need to move, how you're smoothing stuff out to get it to read properly. But now you can see I can rotate her head pretty easily. And then I'll go ahead and grab this, mask a little bit of that, run the smooth on it. Right, and then I'm gonna try to position this where her elbow is, because we're gonna try to rotate her arm a little bit more based off of where actual anatomy would twist as well. But then again, once you get, and you're gonna break it at some point, so it's important to then just grab it, mask it, without like proper, you know, rigging tools. Can move this around a little bit now. And kind of rematch where the elbow and stuff is. This is all stuff you can like resculpt and fix a little later in post. Cynthia's asking, do I like the Kung Fu Panda movies? I like the art of the Kung Fu Panda movies. I think the first one was fine, from what I remember, but what's his name? Nico Marlette was the character designer on it, and his work is fantastic. His character designs are amazing. He also did and worked on How to Train Your Dragon as well. And he has these really cool, his style is so interesting because it's very, it's very inky and like sketchy, but the shapes and the language is so good. So, yeah, it's super, super cool. Nico Marlette, if you don't know that artist, definitely look him up. It's really good. Thank you, host. Tauntaun is asking, is there a 3D film I like the designs of best? Yeah, that's a tough one because design is so based off of, you know, what's required for the story. Because, like, I love Arcane. Arcane's design sense is just really solid. Like, I love the stylized shape language that they went with and the painterly effects and stuff. But shape language wise, I do think something, I mean, Kung Fu Panda has amazing shape language and design. You know, but it's very different and it's kind of hard to compare the two. And then stuff that has, when things like Love, Death, and Robots, I love the stuff that Alberto Maniello does as well, which is super, super different. And I think that 3D style is executed super well. So it is hard to say if there's one that I like the best. I think Into the Spider-Verse design was super well executed. But it's hard to have like a favorite. And then 3D design is also, you know, because there's a lot of 2D design stuff too that I like a lot, like 2D animation wise. You know, like I've been watching a lot of One Piece, and I absolutely love Oda's designs. I think his designs are super amazing for the world that he is trying to create and build, you know? So it's just very much dependent on what I think works for the story as to what I like. So yeah, that's always a really hard one. I feel like whatever I like when it comes to design is whether I think it either helps or hinders the story, or it helps me feel the characters in a more lively fashion. There's a lot of stuff that goes into thinking about like why is a design good for, you know, the certain aspect of film that it's on. So oh, Cynthia, somebody worked on How to Train Your Dragon. Yeah, also the designer for that was also Chris Sanders, who also went on to do The Croods, but he also was the designer for Lilo and Stitch. So when you look at Toothless and you look at Stitch, you can see a lot of similarities there. I'm deciding whether or not I want the arm to kind of like hang down and be more in like a relaxed pose. Because in the reference, he's got his hand kind of more up, but I kind of like the idea that it's also part of me is just like, that's just easier to pose. But we'll see I'm just gonna put the arm back a little bit for now and see if I change my mind later. Because I also want I think it'd be fun if the tail is going to come around and wrap also around the weapon. So yeah, I'll do that later too. It's very nice of you that you went through and found all these models. That's very cool. I'm gonna try to post this one now. Just make sure I don't touch the outside of it. Yeah, I'm really racking my brain now about what my favorite 3D. I feel like there's one that I'm not thinking of right now. It's like totally drawing blank. Unfortunately, it's not any of the 3D Dragon Balls. It's not Dragon Ball Heroes. As much as I want Dragon Ball to be good in 3D. Arc Systems, Dragon Ball Z Fighters, that's probably one of my favorite 3D designs, but it's a game, not for a show. I think what Arc Sys does is pretty incredible. So if Arxis is listening, hire me, please. It'd be awesome. How high? That knee is actually, in the reference, the knee is actually pretty high. Is that going to be high though? You gotta kind of break it. It'll always look really funky with the legs sticking out like that, but I always never pull it far enough, and then I have to go back and try to like mask it again, and that's even more of a pain than just getting it right the first time. So I'm gonna try to get it right the first time. I think that'll be high enough. We'll see. Here we go. Yeah. Doing the can. We're gonna squish this knee a lot. It is okay to make geometry squish into other geometry. That's totally the point. Our bodies squish all the time into stuff. As long as we just sculpt it later to make it feel like they're really squishing into one another, right? Like if we bring this up and we pull this calf out to make it feel like they're overlapping and squishing, it'll look fine. I'm wondering if it'd be kind of cool if she's like resting. It's kind of what the reference is doing, is they're kind of, I think, it's hard to tell because it's from such a straight on view, but I think I'm going to have her foot kind of touching. Oops, too far. And then if you felt like you broke it, you can fix that angle a little bit better. Okay. And I can fix this in post and stuff later too if I want to. That's pretty cool. And then once we have the tail wrapping around and stuff, I think that'll be fun. I don't hate the arm dangling because I think it sells the fact that she's like leaning a lot. Like even if we take this whole piece and we rotate it even more, right, then it kind of sells. I kind of like when she has her arm outstretched. I'm going to change the arm a little bit more, but not a lot. Yeah, Guilty Gear is a very amazing game. Super pretty. I haven't really dived into playing it either, but I've just seen so much of the character designs. They're so good. I'll have that arm. So that arm's going to really feel like it's just kind of hanging and dangling, because a lot of monkeys kind of do that, right? They'll hang and they're very loose. So again, I'm trying to play into more of what I feel like the character is, because again, our reference is not this, but I think this is more accurate to maybe when we observe monkeys and stuff, what maybe they would do, because they'd be pretty relaxed doing something like this. This would be really easy for them in comparison to a human. So I think giving the idea that she's pretty good at this makes it feel pretty cool. If she was she's the student, right? But we're gonna say that she's not like a super beginner, but she's not the most experienced one, right? So, we could do something where she feels like very off balance and is like falling, right? So that would make you also believe that maybe she's learning. So again, we could play with stuff like that as well. But I think for the sake of this pose, we'll keep it this way. Joey from Twitch is saying, what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in 3D art industry, specifically in the field of character art, which is kind of known to be highly competitive and saturated with many aspiring artists? Yeah, it's always a really classic, very common question that I get asked a lot. A good starting point, it depends on if you have 3D programming experience, or experience in ZBrush or something like that. Practice makes perfect, and continuing to practice your craft is always going to be really important. But if you have not really dived into the world of 3D, I think there's a lot of things of character art that, or about character art in games and film that maybe go kind of hidden or unknown, because you could be just texture artist, or you could be a rigging artist, or you could be a lot of things, and that also has to do with characters. Now, character modeling and stuff, yeah, that can be pretty competitive, but I think as long as you're not focusing on so much of the I'm going to just T-pose back now. I think we're at a good spot. As long as you're not focusing on the very technical, I got to learn all the programs, it's really more about keeping in touch with those fundamental designs and those basic ideas of what character art is, right? Because we're trying to tell stories, we're trying to sell an idea, we're trying to sell the story of something, right? So I think all that stuff is really important to keep in mind. And that's really the basis of, what's going to make you a good artist versus just someone who knows ZBrush. That's what's going to make you valuable in the industry. So I think really practicing those fundamentals is super important. I'll always, preach that for sure. But if you're even new to just the 3D programs and stuff, I've recommended on this stream before to just get into something like Blender, where Blender's free and you can practice and try to do all sorts of the pipeline without, paying a bunch of money for a bunch of different programs, which is really great. So if you don't know if you like digital sculpting, you can practice digital sculpting in that and see if that's something that you like or not. So there's somewhere to begin, when you're doing stuff like that. But a lot of your portfolio, I also recommend do what you want to do, A lot of people try to follow these trends as well in the industry. I would recommend not doing that. Obviously, if you want to work for something very, very specific, like Riot or something, then yeah, you should gear your portfolio towards something that makes sense for Riot. But at the same time, don't just follow a trend of, it's really popular to sculpt robots right now, so I'm going to sculpt robots even though I hate sculpting robots. Don't do that to yourself. Stay true to what you like to do. For this stream, I try to make everything that I enjoy making. even though this is a sponsored stream and whatever it may be, no one's telling me to work on anything in particular. I'm making the stuff that I like to make, right? Because that's what you should get hired to do. Because at the end of the day, we're artists that get to enjoy our craft, and I think that's something really special. So try not to turn this into too much of a job. Keep passion in it, keep it alive, keep it interesting and engaging for yourself. So yeah. Oh, so you want me to put like the sailors like searching for something? Synth is sorry, I'm catching up on questions. Synth is asking, do I post characters I made somewhere? Yeah, I'm actually really bad about that. Normally I should do that, Synth. Most of the final ones you'll see on my Instagram. I do have an Instagram that I usually will try to post to. I am not always the best at it. I'm very forgetful. Posing hands is fun. But yeah, on my Instagram, which is at Stegon, you can find me there, and you can usually find the stuff that I've worked on. I don't always post the sketches though, but I should. I think I usually post the sketches if I post anything, so you can always keep an eye out there. Tauntaun is asking, are there any mistakes that new 3Rs often make? Yeah, there's a lot of mistakes that you always make in the beginning of that learning process. I think a big one is, as a 3D artist, kind of what I said before was they're not focused. A lot of 3D artists will try to focus on the program, and it's really easy to get very lost into all the buttons that come with every program, and that's really intimidating. But again, the most important thing is continuing your fundamentals and those basic design skills. Because if you can't do that, then it doesn't matter whether or not you know Maya or every program on the face of the planet. If you don't know how to design well, no one really cares. Have I been moving the fingers? Oh no. No! And move your finger really far away. I don't want to repose, so I think I'm just gonna select this. God, I hate it when I do that. I do that every time. It's so annoying. Yeah. I don't know where this finger was normally positioned, but I'm just gonna Frankenstein that back on. There we go. Nothing happened. Right? It's totally fine. It's totally cool. All right. Yeah. So that's a really common mistake, is people get too dived into feeling like they need to know the. I'm gonna do it again. The program super well. When in reality, I think the more important thing is those design fundamentals. So yeah, just keep that stuff in mind. Another one too is use reference. That's even something that pro artists forget to do most of the time, but I show every single time on my stream. It's why I do it. I do drawing, and I bring up a reference board, because this stuff is not made from a box. This is not made from some magical vacuum. It's super important to be inspired by the things that exist around us. I feel like part of being an artist is also your interpretation of your experiences and of the world that you live in. We all live in the same world. I'm gonna do it again. This stupid thinky. Max, get away. But yeah, an artist, it's all about the expression of your experience and how you see things and how you see the world, and the things that you learn is what makes an artist unique. And so when you don't use reference and you're not studying that world that exists around you, I think you're kind of just wasting really awesome potential that's already there. So that's also my advice. if you see somebody online that's like hashtag no reference, go smack that person digitally on the internet, because it's not true. People who don't use reference and who are good artists, I'll say this, there are plenty of bad artists who obviously don't use reference. But if you see like an artist that's really inspiring to you, and they say something like no reference, it's not true. The reference is just in their brain because they've been doing it for 30 years. So even if they say they're not using reference, they're full of crap, because they are. They're just not looking at it. They just have so much practice and probably looking at reference beforehand that they don't need to use reference for like just a sketch or an idea or something like that, right? But it's not a cool trick, and it's not an interesting one to say, oh, I don't use reference. Nobody's impressed by that. Nobody cares. At least real artists don't. So that's my hot opinion on that. Finger on the run. Again, there's a finger on the run. Am I going to retop and UV this monkey myself? I keep saying that I want to turn all these sculpts into game assets, but I'm also making a game already that is not with any of these characters involved. So eventually, I would love to do that and actually finish them, because for now they are just kind of like these sculpts that go into the ether when I'm done with them and don't really see anything else. So yeah, I think I would like to one of these days. I think it'd be fun to go in and do some actual like hand painting textures rather than just poly paint textures. So 100% eventually I'd like to do that, but we'll see what kind of time I am given. I'm gonna move this out. Oh no, not that. What am I doing? There we go. That's what I want to do. Got a little confused with my masking there. Last question, thoughts on paying for a mentorship. I am, as flattering as that is, I'm assuming you're talking about mentoring with me. I teach at Gnomon, so I think that's the closest to a membership that you could currently get. Besides that, I am probably too busy of a person. I already stream and teach and have a full-time job at a game studio. So the other times I like to be focusing on my own personal work and doing my own thing. I do appreciate the sentiment of wanting to work, but if you do want to learn from me, you can take a Gnomon class if you're in the area in LA, and I would love to see you there for sure. Oh, Joe, you have another question, which is it bad to use sculpts in your portfolio or ArtStation? No, absolutely not. All these sculpts that I would do, I would totally post onto my ArtStation or website. I think I have posted some on my website, not all of them, because usually at the end of each one, I'll make a turntable for it, and then I'll usually try to post that. Again, I'm not always really good at it. I'm not really looking for a job or anything right now, so my portfolio is not as updated as it potentially could be, but 100% sculpts go a long way to be seeing your portfolio. So that's where you can see all your artistic stuff. Not everything, I would say, has to be a fully finished, fledged game asset, but it should be a finished idea and concept or execution of something, right? I would love to turn all these into game assets one day, but it's not. Those pants got dragged down a lot. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. I think I could probably take one or two of these if I'm thinking of a portfolio, I could take one or two of these to a full game asset and show that, and then the people looking at my portfolio would go, okay, she knows how to bring this into, a game asset. I don't have to do all of them to prove that. You just need to do a few. Once you can show that you can do one, you can show that you can do them all. So That's my recommendation. But show all your sculpts. I mean, the more work you show, the better it is usually. I mean, it's not about quantity over quality, right? You want the opposite. But if you have a lot of good quality work, show off your good quality work. There's nothing wrong with that. So. Okay. I'm going to get rid of this monkey tail. I'm just kind of making small adjustments now, just kind of fixing the pose. And adding in some, bigger folds and stuff now that we have our pose in line. So we're trying to add some stretching where the stretching would occur. Thank you, Joy, for asking questions. I appreciate it. I like people that ask questions. It keeps me busy. All right. Let's add a tail. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert I think I actually have a tubes brush here that I'm just going to use. So what I can do is I can change the stroke of this. Oops. You can go to modifiers and I can say I want it thick to thin to thick again, maybe. So it can be thickest at the end because that's where monkey tail I want it to be thickest. So we'll wrap this around. Something like that. Split mask points, and then there's some noise on this for whatever. Oh, because I picked the wood, that's why. So I'm going to turn off the noise. My shoulder. I'm not used to, okay, I get it. I'm not used to sculpting on the screen yet, so man, my shoulder is like killing me now. After working all day and sculpting all day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to use my shoulder so much. Close. There we go. Yeah, so the tube brush is like basically extruding from a curve that you draw. So it's a very handy little tool. It's a very easy way to basically just draw a tail without drawing a tail, right? There we go. And now I can inflate this more if I want to, and move this around a little bit more and stuff. Just play with the pose. There we go. It's always good to look at your stuff from, far away to see if it's reading pretty well. So like one thing is I think I want to move this tail maybe more upwards. So that way so you can see that the silhouette just can read a bit better. Synth is asking, when you're trying to show the age, young versus old, of the characters that are more animal-like, what are some good tips to achieve that? That's a really good question. I think it's the same way you would achieve stuff for humans as well. I think a lot of it has to do with proportion. So making a character feel young. A common thing for drawing or for sculpting is the younger the character, usually one, the eyes will sometimes be bigger, but also the forehead will get a little bigger as well. So if you look at like children proportions, children's foreheads are pretty big. But when you're talking about like older characters, and maybe this is something we can try to create the contrast of for our next character, because we will be doing the teacher after this, right? So now we'll be moving on to who mentors this character. And I have some fun ideas. I'm already thinking of probably doing an orangutan, because that just sounds super fun to sculpt. But the idea too is like an older character will have, maybe their jaw isn't as strong anymore, or there's more loose bags under the eyes, and the proportions will be very, very different from a character that has a lot of youth to that. So I just think it's important to keep in mind it's more of a proportion thing than anything else. And also, if I added a bunch of wrinkles to this character, you'd be like, oh, she's kind of like older, right? I think I want to give her maybe the monkey kind of like lip face. So you can see a little bit of her teeth. And then we'll maybe do a thing where her brow is coming down. So you got a bit of a sassy look. And we'll take that eyebrow. And furrow that brow. You can also play with turning the eyes a bit. And then we can kind of sculpt in a little bit of a furrow. Asymmetry is always a great way to start, and obviously an expression is a great way to start bringing your characters to life a little bit. Are the eyes or are spheres with an image projected on? They're just painted, yeah. So the eyes are just painted. I even painted like a little highlight. There's I did that on one of the previous videos. So if you're behind on any of the videos, you can actually just go to YouTube, and they're all posted up there, and you can check them out there. And we are just on time. I mean, I think, obviously I would do, I gotta move her satchel. Oh no, not everything's turned on. So I can move, hurry Ashley, hurry before the time runs out. So I like the idea that these are they're more like floating. They're not actually, give her a bit of mystical spent too long on that hand. So you can move this now. And then you can take this one. Close this. You could do something like this. So I'm going to start subdividing this so I have more to play with here. Oh, that's the satchel. Getting there. You're getting there. Sorry, I'm like not talking because I'm so focused on beating out the clock. Oops. And then we can take her. Again, the thing that really sells these poses for me, at least, is like not being afraid to push this in and really crumpling that and making it feel like it's getting pushed against that satchel there. Same thing with making sure that this feels pressed into. There we go. Hello from Brazil. Joey's asking, if you add hard surface props to a character, do you just use ZModeler or would you switch to Maya? I do everything in ZBrush. I don't remember the last time I actually modeled something in Maya. I'll model some stuff in Blender now. I do a little bit more Blender stuff, but for the most part, I stick with good old-fashioned ZBrush. It's just easier for me if I know how to do it in one program. I like to keep it in one program. Because it's less importing and exporting into a bunch of different stuff. Turn that gear off. That's not part of my composition. And there we go. I think that's a character. Pretty happy with the way that pose turned out. Again, I want to hone in on the point that I did not come up with the pose. The pose is referenced. If you just utilize what is around you and what you see as reference. I mean, look at that. That's pretty much what I modeled. Was just that. I need to add the band to the bottom of it before it would be finished, but I just wanted to get something posed real quick. Obviously, but. Yeah, so this is our character, and obviously I think there's more to be done with all these little assets and things. We can move this stuff around more and make that push and pull that in a lot of fun, cool ways. Make that feel more dynamic. Feel like she's kind of moving. But yeah, super fun character. So again, we're going to continue with this style, and I'm going to do probably another monkey, who's going to be the mentor, because the idea is monk, so monkey, so Charlotte monkey. It's kind of the fun trope that we're playing with here. And so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream and this character. I've had a lot of fun making this character. We also got to approach a female character this time around, which I think all the other ones I did were male characters. So I think that was kind of fun to switch and add that stuff up. So again, I will be back on Tuesdays from 4 to 6, and we'll be starting a new character, which if you guys, again, have watched me stream before, we'll be drawing out the concept first, and then we'll be, the next 3 weeks will be sculpting it and pushing that to the final maquette like this one. So hope you guys had a good time, and remember to save your work as always. Don't save over your T-pose, save as posed. And yeah, I will catch you guys next week. Again, thanks for joining Archetype, sponsored by Levo and AMD. I'm your host, Ashley, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!